Hello guys, Michelle here and welcome back to another episode right here on my channel. In this video I'm going to be covering with you all of the camera gear that I'm going to be taking with me on the South Island leg of Te Araroa. Now before we get into any of the detail in this video, I did just want to say right at the outset here that I don't profess to be, I don't claim to be an expert on any of the stuff that I'm going to be talking to you about in this video. It has taken me a very long time, a lot of stress, a lot of effort and a lot of money to get together all of this camera gear. I know that it's going to be a very steep learning curve once I get out there, and so a lot of the footage, especially in the early stages, probably isn't going to be as top notch as it could be. But having said all of that, one of my biggest goals when I started this channel was to be able to show people what I believe is the single most beautiful place here on planet Earth, and that is the South Island, specifically from the Te Araroa trail. And so by having some of this more professional gear and learning how to use that whilst I am out on the trail, I'm hoping that I am going to be able to do justice to exactly what the South Island or Te Waipounamu really means to me in my heart of hearts. And so without further ado, let's take a look at all of the camera gear I'm going to be taking with me onto the South Island. Now of course a camera gear video does not go very far unless you mention right at the outset exactly what your main camera is going to be, and that is actually the camera that I'm recording on right here today. That is my brand new Canon EOS M50 mirrorless camera. Now for those of you who have been watching the channel for a little while, you'll know that this mirrorless camera is an upgrade from my previous Nikon D5500 DSLR camera, which I absolutely loved, and it broke my heart to sell that camera to somebody else who I know is going to be able to put some use to it. But I had to consider the practicalities of exactly what I am embarking on the South Island and exactly what I need from a camera. And really there was no other option than to upgrade from a DSLR to a mirrorless camera. So I had quite a lot of anxiety about carrying with me a mirrored camera whilst I was actually out on the trail. I know now from my thru hike of the North Island that the conditions out there can be pretty tough and pretty harsh, and that's something that a camera really is going to have to be able to stand up to. And I just wasn't confident that I would be able to carry a camera with me for 1400 kilometers and not risk breaking the mirror inside it at some point during that journey. And there were a few reasons why I decided to choose the Canon EOS M50 camera over some of the other mirrorless cameras on the market. Not least of which the fact that coming from Nikon, I was really curious to try out the Canon brand to see if it's something that I like. But also I know that the EOS M50 is very popular with YouTubers in particular. It has a very quick autofocus, which means that I will be able to use it in selfie mode on a regular basis and not worry too much about whether or not I remain in focus. Plus it doubles as a really great still camera as well. Even though it does have a crop down sensor, I'm still confident that I'm going to be able to get some really top-notch landscape photography out of this camera whilst I'm actually out on the trail. I am so far really impressed with the quality and the ease of use of this camera, and I'm looking forward to using it out on the Te Araroa South Island section. Now I ended up purchasing my EOS M50 with a kit lens, but I also purchased at the same time one additional lens for it, which should cover everything that I need to do on the South Island, and that is a Canon EF-M 11-22mm lens. This is wide enough to capture those beautiful landscape shots and also to not hurt my arm too much when I'm trying to hold it out in selfie mode. But also it's a really great portrait lens at the 22mm end as well. So I'm really looking forward to putting this lens through its paces on the South Island. Now of course, if you are going to try and vlog your travels on a long distance trail when you are going to be out in the outdoors for a substantial proportion of that time, you do need to be a little bit mindful of weatherproofing of that camera. So those of you who have been watching for a little while will remember that I started my North Island thru hike around about this time last year, and I started right from the very top of the North Island and made my way in a southbound direction. Now one of the biggest advantages of doing this is that typically it tends to be a lot more warm, a lot drier in the northern part of the North Island around this time of year, and so as I was making my way south I was sort of following that warm and dry weather. And as a result, I think I calculated over the entire North Island section of my adventure, I only had cumulatively about 7 days worth of rain. Now contrast that with what is happening this year, which is an entirely different situation for me. In fact, I will be starting on the South Island around about the same time that a lot of people are starting their southbound through hikes from way up at Cape Reinga at the top of the North Island. And this means that potentially I am going to be in for some pretty adverse weather as I make my way through the South Island. In fact, we've already started to see a lot of it just in the last few weeks here. We've been having some torrential rain and very cold temperatures. So to cover off all of that kind of scenario and to make sure that even in the most adverse weather conditions I can still get some really great footage for you guys from the South Island, I did decide to purchase one of the DJI Osmo Action cameras. Now this camera does have a whole bunch of weatherproofing built right into it, and technically speaking I should be able to use it just in its raw form like this in a typical rain shower and not have to worry too much about it. Now I will confess at this point that I haven't bought a specific waterproof case for this. I didn't believe that it was worth the wait for me to carry it, so I'm really hoping that that does prove to be the right decision as I head south on the South Island. Regardless of that though, I think it is a sensible decision to have some kind of a backup camera, and that will be the primary purpose of the Osmo Action camera. But whilst we're on the subject of backup cameras, we really can't overlook the backup camera that everybody carries around with them these days anyway, and that is the camera built into our cell phones. Now for a lot of you out there who know this channel and who know my adventures on the North Island, one thing you will notice straight away is that this is no longer an iPhone. Yes, that's right, I have finally upgraded my 6-year-old iPhone 6 Plus, which is what I recorded the entirety of my Te Araroa North Island through hike with, to this little baby here, and this is my Oppo Reno 4 Pro 5G phone. Now this is a very new purchase for me. In fact, this is less than a week old as I am making this video, so again a big learning curve here for me, especially as a convert from an iOS system to an Android system. But I'm really looking forward to putting this through its paces on the trail as a backup camera, even just for taking still images. I'm not too sure that I'll be taking a lot of video on this particular device. My intention is to use this more as a navigational tool, and then also when I get into towns to do all of my YouTube work and to host my live Q&A sessions for my patrons. Now one thing that I have learned over the years is that it is not enough just to have a decent camera. It really does make all the difference when you've got a few extra little bits and pieces of gear to go along with it to really make that footage that you're going to get top quality. And one of the biggest pieces of gear that you can invest in for yourself if you're looking at getting some decent quality footage is a lightweight tripod. Now this is a relatively new purchase. Again, it's something that has only just recently turned up on my doorstep, but this is a Pedco UltraPod 3 tripod. It is incredibly lightweight. In fact, I could barely believe how much this weighed when I unpacked it from the shipping package just the other day, and I'm really excited to actually getting an opportunity to test this out on the trail. Again, if you were watching my North Island hike series, you'll know that for a little while I was using a Joby flexible GorillaPod tripod with my iPhone to get some of my footage. But over time the legs started to break off, and this is a pretty common problem with the Joby GorillaPod tripods, and so eventually I ended up just putting it in the bin and forgetting about it because it was basically unusable. The one thing though that I did like about the GorillaPod tripod was that its flexible legs meant that I could wrap it around just about any tree branch, anything slightly higher up off the ground to get some better footage. And that's something that I am a little bit nervous about with this Pedco UltraPod. But what it does have is a little Velcro strap which effectively skirts that issue. It means that you're able to unwind that Velcro strap and put it around a tree branch or whatever else that you might need to attach it to get a similar effect to the flexible legs on the GorillaPod. And outside of evening up any shaky footage that you'd otherwise get if you weren't using a tripod, the next most noticeable thing for viewers is of course the sound quality. And that's why on the South Island leg of Te Araroa I will be carrying with me my Rode Video Micro microphone. Now I've been using Rode microphones now since I started this YouTube channel, and in my opinion there really is no match for their quality for that same kind of entry level price. The microphone also comes with a decent sized dead cat to go over the top of it, which will help to minimize any excess wind noise, and it's relatively lightweight and will fit inside my designated camera bag. So that covers off most of the main aspects of the camera equipment for my South Island hike of Te Araroa, but of course there are also a lot of other incidental bits and pieces that really are non-negotiable. So one of the most important pieces of camera gear that I will be carrying with me is actually a Peak Design version 3 capture clip. Now undoubtedly you will have seen one of these Peak Designs capture clips in any number of YouTube videos from hikers and thru hikers alike. These are the little clips that attach directly to the strap of your backpack, which allow you to carry your camera right up here on the front of your body. And I was very lucky to actually win my Peak Designs capture clip from a competition held by fellow Kiwi YouTuber and thru hiker Eleanor Osborne. If you haven't already visited Eleanor's channel, please go ahead and check her out. Her videos are absolutely amazing and I love her cinematic style. She is also heading out onto Te Araroa this season, and I have no doubt that her videos will far surpass anything that I'll be able to put out here. So good luck out on the trail, Eleanor. Now in order to use that Peak Designs capture clip I have to put an attachment onto the bottom of my camera, and because that little attachment will pretty much permanently be on my camera for the entire duration of the South Island, I had to pick up this little adapter for my tripod so that I can sit it on top. This is a Swiss clamp from Arca, and it just means that I can slide my Peak Designs capture clip into there as opposed to screw the tripod into the bottom of my camera as would normally be the case. And whilst we're on the subject of attaching cameras to various different pieces of equipment, I should also mention that I picked up this POV kit from Peak Design as well. This will allow me to attach my Osmo action camera into the Peak Design clip on the strap of my backpack, and whereas I'm not sure that I'll actually be getting any moving footage by using the camera in this location, it does provide really easy access to it for me on those wet weather days. And just in case there are any sections where I do decide to ditch the EOS M50 for any reason in favour of using just my cell phone camera, then I am also carrying with me this little cell phone adapter mount from Pegco, which came with my tripod. Now one area of technical gear that I really did have to get my head around were some filters to be carrying with the cameras that I'm going to be using. Filters are not something that I have historically used in the past. I've not really seen a need for them, but I do now understand that they can make a big difference to the kind of footage that I'm going to be able to capture. So one of the first things that I ended up picking up were a set of bright day filters from Freewell for my DJI Osmo action camera. This is a 4 filter set that should cover any of my needs whilst I'm actually out and about in the open on the South Island, and hopefully will mean that I don't get any of my footage getting blown out by the bright light. And then for the EOS M50 I've picked up 3 different sets of filter attachments for the mirrorless camera. The first one is a UV filter to go over the lens, which will hopefully protect it from the effects of any harsh UV light and also just provide a little bit of protection from dirt and dust and scratches. The second one is a CPL or circular polarizing filter, and the third one that I picked up was a variable ND filter. And all 3 of those filters are from the K&F concept brand, which I managed to locate on Amazon. Now whereas the UV and the CPL filter seem to be doing just fine, unfortunately the variable ND filter is causing some issues with the footage that I'm able to get off of the camera. I knew this would be a little bit of a risk. After all, I wasn't paying $300 or $400 to get a variable ND filter for my camera, and you might have even seen the effects of some of this in the previous video I posted on the Hooker Falls Spa Park loop, where it appeared that the edges of the video were just slightly starting to wobble. Also on my still images, that variable ND filter is causing a vignette to occur around the edges. This is all a little bit disappointing, especially for a filter that cost the best part of $100, and unfortunately now it means that I'm not going to be able to carry any ND filter for my mirrorless camera while I'm out on the South Island. But nevertheless, now I know what difference an ND filter can make. It is definitely something that I will be investing in the future. And all of the Freewell ND filters and the 2 filters from K&F Concept that I will be taking with me will be stored in this little homemade home sewn pouch that I made for them. Now, of course, if I'm carrying all of this camera gear with me, then I want to make 100% sure that I'm going to be able to film with all of this equipment, and that means making sure that I have enough battery capacity to get me through some of those long sections on the South Island. And this is an area that I've really struggled with. The Canon EOS M50 in particular has a very small battery size, only 875 milliamp hours, which really isn't going to get me an awful lot of footage at all. So I have decided to invest in 3 extra batteries for it, which I will be carrying with me along the trail, plus a little dual battery recharger, which means that I can charge 2 batteries at once from my power bank. Similarly, I have the same situation with the Osmo action camera, although that is a roughly 1300 milliamp hour battery, so I've invested in 2 extra batteries for that, which I can charge directly in the camera along the way. And of course, along with being concerned about extra juice for the cameras, I'm also concerned about having extra storage space. So I have also purchased 2 additional SD cards, one additional 128 gig SD card for the Canon EOS M50 and another 128 gig micro SD card for the Osmo action camera. Currently they both have 64 gig cards in them. And for those of you who watched my recent video on new gear purchases, you'll know that all of this camera gear will be stored inside my Waymark Zip fanny pack. Alright guys, that pretty much covers off all of the new camera gear that I will be carrying with me on the South Island to hopefully get you some pretty decent footage while I'm out there that I hope you will enjoy. If you've got any questions or comments about anything in this video, please go ahead and leave it down below in the comments section. Otherwise, if you like this video, don't forget to go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also ding that little notification bell to get notified of the next one. And don't forget to stay tuned next week when I will be posting my full gear list for the South Island section. Until then guys, take care and stay safe out there.